welcome to the channel Probably Biased. I'm Sean, and today we will be talking about Assassin's Creed Rogue and Assassin's Creed Unity. Now, for those of you who haven't been following, Assassin's Creed Rogue and Unity were released on the same day, November 11th, 2014, which is fairly odd. It's not very common that a publisher will release two different games on the same day. Rogue was released exclusively for the PS3 and Xbox 360, while Unity was an exclusive to the PS4 and Xbox One. Ubisoft has been fairly tight-lipped about any PC ports for either game, or next-gen ports for Rogue. Now, as to why Rogue was released only on the old consoles rather than next-gen, well, basically it's just a continuation of Assassin's Creed 3 and 4. Using mostly PS3 assets, animations, graphics, textures, the works. So for anyone who's played Assassin's Creed 3 or Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, will recognize the gameplay, graphics, and most of the character design and style from those games in Rogue. Now, I'll be talking more about Unity in a video to follow, but for now we're just going to be talking about Rogue. Now, the basic premise for Rogue is that you're following an assassin turned Templar. And, I am a fan of the Assassin's Creed series and a fan of the Assassins. I've spent, every game from the beginning fighting Templars. Why would I want to play as an assassin turned Templar? Do I want to play as a Templar? Not really. So, as the channel Probably Biased says, I'm biased in favor of these games. I like them. I'm a fan of the series. And for most of these videos, I'll be speaking as either a fan or a stranger to these different franchises. And unlike other reviewers, I'm not going to pretend I'm not biased. I am. I like the Assassin's Creed games, but I'm still going to try to be fair and represent these games in a balanced manner. And from that perspective, let's talk about Rogue. So, as a continuation of 3 and 4, we expect to see many of the same assets, but we would also like to see some different things. Now, Assassin's Creed 4 used a lot of the same content as 3, but it added a lot more as well. Kenway had different weapons. He was a dual-weapon fighter, but had very different animations from Connor, who fought mostly with a tomahawk and a dagger, while Kenway fought with a pair of swords. Very different animations. 4 also added naval combat in a much more expansive way than 3 had. Rather than individually launched missions with limited interactivity, Assassin's Creed 4 had a complete naval transportation and combat system, where you sail from one location to the next. So, what has Rogue brought to the table? Well, in Rogue, there are a few new mechanics. He's got an air rifle and grenade launcher, which launches smoke and berserk grenades, and shrapnel grenades that can knock out, berserk, or kill large groups of enemies at a time. It's also the first game in the series that has had you fighting other assassins with assassin skills. And they're not easy to fight. They'll use smoke bombs, they'll use ranged weapons, they'll use cover and stalking locations to ambush, trap, or flee from you. And they're pretty challenging enemies to fight. It's good to see challenging enemies. I like that. But what else has the game added? Well, it's added narwhals, polar bears, icebergs, but not much else. All told, Rogue has not added that many new mechanics or features. Frankly, compared to the Freedom's Cry DLC for Assassin's Creed 4, which added Wale as a playable assassin, Rogue hasn't added that much. We have a different ship model, which is nice. It's still a brig, but at least it's slightly different. But apart from a different ship, some new hunting targets, and a couple new free-running and weapon models, Rogue hasn't added that much in the way of new gameplay. Basically, that brings the new content down to exploration and storyline. And Rogue has a lot of exploration. There are a lot of regions. You have New York, you have the North Atlantic, and you have the river valleys of the Great Lakes. And there are a ton of collectibles, a ton of locations, and a ton of collectibles. But really, the exploration and the collectibles are extra. We really come to these games for the gameplay and the storyline. And The question of whether Rogue delivers on these, well, it doesn't. For a full-priced retail game, the story is only about 20 hours long. It took me about 10 hours playing each day, 2 days to beat, and that included a lot of exploration and a lot of collectible gathering. The storyline itself was pretty short, and also, in my opinion, very lackluster. And I'll get into that shortly, because that discussion will involve a lot of spoilers. Is the game worth your purchase? Well, for $60, I wouldn't say it is. The storyline isn't very long. It doesn't add that much new over previous Assassin's Creed games, and when you get right down to it, Shay is not a character I wanted to play. He is not a character I wanted to win. His motives and background stink. They're not good. He was basically being an idiot. And I didn't want him to succeed. When you get right down to it, you have to want your player character to win, whether you're playing Master Chief or Lara Croft. You have to want the player character to win. And here, I didn't. If Shay had tripped and fallen on his own sword, that would have been hilarious. And a perfectly good ending. Instead, we have a terrible plot, terrible motives, and a terrible character. And all for $60 to essentially play the same game as Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed 4 again for a little bit. Essentially, this game should have been a DLC for 4. It uses most of the same assets as 4. Pretty much the only asset it uses from Assassin's Creed 3 that I can see is the walking through snow animations. That's about it. Was that worth a separate game title for some icebergs, some snow, and polar bears? I don't think so. All told, I'd rate this game at about a 4 out of 10. This is below average for Ubisoft. On top of a bad plot and bad character, there are graphics glitches. There are animation glitches. There are broken textures. These mistakes are just not acceptable for a company that has already mastered multiple titles under the PS3 system. And the PlayStation is what I played this on. Why are there broken graphics? Why? There weren't, at least I did not experience any in 3 or 4, at least not as bad as some of the ones I'm seeing here. They really don't have an excuse for those kinds of mistakes. So, a 4 out of 10. Below average for what Ubisoft can provide. It's not long enough, it doesn't offer anything new, and the storyline is just not worth it. This is really a purchase for only die-hard fans, and people obsessed with the naval gameplay. That's about it. So now let's get into some of the plot. This is the biggest aspect of the game, the biggest reason to play it, because it doesn't have multiplayer features. It doesn't add a whole lot of new gameplay. It's not like this is the first time naval gameplay has been added in Assassin's Creed. So if that's what you wanted to play, you can just play 3 or 4. The real reason to get this game would be the plot. And is it worth it? Well, here we're going to get into a lot of spoilers. So if you don't want any spoilers, just stop watching here. If you want to know more about why I think the plot stinks, keep listening. So essentially, the game is set between the beginning and main content of Assassin's Creed 3. After Haytham Kenway has gone to the colonies to establish a new Templar right there, and before Connor Kenway becomes an assassin and starts ripping up that Templar organization. And this basically covers the fall of Achilles' Brotherhood of Assassins, why he's a crippled old man living in a mansion. So, the game begins with the character Shay Patrick Cormac, a recruit to the Assassin Brotherhood, the youngest and most recent of the core assassins brought into the order by Achilles and being trained by him. The others being a Native American assassin named Kesagawase, a French knight or chevalier, and captain, whose name I don't even want to try to pronounce, a female gang leader assassin named Hope, and the main character's childhood friend, a guy named Liam, as well as Achilles himself, and Adewale makes a cameo appearance. And then Shay comes in. He's been brought into the order by Liam, taken off of the streets where he had been poor, homeless, and adrift without any hope or prospects. He's taken off the streets, he's trained, he's given a livelihood, he's been given a home, he's been given companions and friends, and a family, essentially. The only one he really doesn't get along with is the French assassin, who's basically a bit of a prick. But, then again, Shay has not done a lot to earn his respect either. Instead, Shay demands respect and demands trust, but is unwilling to trust or respect his companions. And this leads to the main conflict of the story. Now, the plot revolves around a precursor box and a strange manuscript. The manuscript being written in some language that no one can read, and the box, apparently, is a translation device. Although, unlike every other precursor artifact in the series, it doesn't work very well. It has to be powered up by electricity before it will function. And rather than translating the manuscript into words that you can understand, it instead creates some kind of weird holographic map that shows one precursor site location at a time. And so you have to use and power the box multiple times to translate more of the manuscript. Now, the game begins with the Caribbean Brotherhood of Assassins, led by the guy who's gone crazy, named Makandel, whose name you will remember if you've played Assassin's Creed Liberation. He's the guy that Aveline dealt with. And he's basically gone a bit crazy. His Brotherhood tried to activate the device, find the precursor site, and recover an artifact. Instead, things didn't go very well, and it resulted in an earthquake devastating Haiti. During the chaos, the Templars stole the box and the manuscript and fled to New York. Adewale gave chase and tracked them up there, but could not complete the mission. He has to go back to the Caribbean to try to talk some sense into Makandel, and so has instead placed the mission in the hands of Achilles. Achilles takes the mission upon himself and starts hunting down the box and the manuscript. Shay, being one of the more promising of the new recruits, is put on the mission, and in short order, you as the player character recover the box and the manuscript. You activate it, you find another precursor location, this time in Lisbon, and with everyone else busy, Shay is sent to go to the location and recover the artifact. But instead of an Apple of Eden, which apparently is what they thought it was, although that wasn't well explained, instead it appears to be a remnant of the World Tree Yggdrasil, referencing Norse mythology. Although, again, that wasn't referenced much. Instead, all we really see about it is a belt buckle on Shay's outfit and a pin on the clothing of one of the modern-day Templars. It was apparently linked to this somehow, although the relation between them was never much established. And you'll be hearing me say that a lot. A lot of things in this story are just not well established. They're not gone into at any length. They're not explained. You're just supposed to take it on faith and, I guess, think it's a good plot point. So instead, Shay activates this World Tree location, it falls apart and creates an earthquake, and Lisbon is destroyed. Thousands of people are dead, Shay barely escapes with his life, and sees people crushed, flattened, burned, more crushed, all throughout his escape. Now, upon his return to the colonies and his return to the manor house, it's described in the database and the way the Templars talk about it as though he walks in and calmly explains what happened and how they shouldn't do this anymore, and instead Achilles just goes, yeah, well, I don't believe you, we're going to hunt down more sites anyway. Well, that's not what we see happening. Instead, Shay bursts in during a meeting between Achilles and Hope, and basically just starts screaming and ranting and raging and accusing Achilles of knowingly sending him to kill thousands of people and destroy a city. And rather than deal with this rationally, Achilles, who is dealing with the guilt and loss of his wife and son, who died tragically due to illness, is not in the mood to deal with Shay's, yet again, pretentious and disrespectful attitude, and simply tells him to leave. And his friend Liam tells him to go cool off for a while. Well, instead of cooling off and then coming back and trying to explain himself calmly, instead Shay decides to take it upon himself because he's the only person in the world who could keep the planet safe from these strange precursor sites and these stupid assassins who will needlessly touch them. Not because, the Templars were trying to do the exact same thing, and that's why the assassins stole back the box and the manuscript. No, of course not. It's the assassin's fault, and Shay steals the manuscript, and in his escape gets shot, and falls into the ocean. Now, in the Arctic, in the North Atlantic, which is really cold, you die within a few minutes of winding up in the water, especially since Shay had been shot and fallen off a cliff. Well, instead, and totally conveniently, a ship of the Templars was somehow passing miraculously close to the assassin hideout at the manor, at the entrance to the bay where they have their harbor, it would seem, and somehow not only sees Shay's floating body in the dark, cold ocean, but pulls him out and patches him up. Then he goes on to start beating up assassin bandits who are somehow, and for some reason, acting like total pricks to this elderly couple of Templar parents. And he goes from being totally crippled to beating them up. And then, when he goes from being able to barely walk to running around the rooftops. Which, okay, it's not that uncommon to see characters badly hurt and then the next minute running around and doing everything normally. That's not so terrible. But the just coincidence of this plot line that he falls into the water and is just miraculously pulled to safety by the Templars is just stupid. It's a dumb plot point. It doesn't make sense. The convenience involved is just astronomical. Not to mention that Shay then begins to not only work with the Templars, but then finds out who he's working with and then continues to do so, and starts to trust them. Far more than he ever trusted his assassin companions, which he had supposedly started doubting the morality of their killing Templars who are doing bad things. Now he's perfectly fine killing people on the suspicion that they will do bad things. The assassins are developing poison gas, and the Templars say they intend to use it against authorities, and then also say that they're going to use it against the populace. And basically, they're caught in a lie. They're lying about what the assassins are using it for. They don't really seem to know. But rather than call them on this lie, Shay just sort of goes, okay, and goes and starts messing things up. In fact, throughout the entire course of the game, we never see the assassins bring this plan to fruition, despite having caches of poison gas all over the place. We never see them do it. And have no idea what their plot to use it with was at all. And yet, we have Shay getting into the middle of things. And instead of going to the people who he should know and asking them what they're doing or telling them to stop, the best course of action is to go to the people who used to be your friends and mentors and start killing them. Because, that's the justified, righteous attitude to take. Not to mention that apparently the Templars believe Shay's story about the precursor site, which why they would have any reason or cause to trust an assassin who could have been sent to them as an infiltrator. Never given. They have no reason to trust, no reason to work with this guy, and yet they do. So Shay starts getting involved, and he tries to recover the box and the manuscript. Through the entire game, the assassins are trying to activate it again and find another location, and Shay's trying to stop them, believing that they will activate another site and destroy another city and kill another few thousand people. So Shay, one by one, starts killing his previous assassin friends, and here's where the plot becomes even more ridiculous. Now, in most of the previous games, there had been a progression, a nice, steady flow of targets to kill, and you build up to it, kill them, find out more information, and another target, and then go kill that target. Instead, Shay learns nothing from these assassinations. The confessions don't reveal any new information, and then instead of, during these death confessions, they prick at Shay's conscience, or point out how he's being stupid and illogical and hypocritical. They instead resort to the totally cliched bad guy, well, you may have killed me, but you're too late. Our plan is already gone into effect. for no reason. So you kill Kasagawase, and then a while passes, and then you kill Adewale. And Shay seems broken up about it. And why Adewale is there in the first place when he supposedly had gone back to the Caribbean is weird. He could have been a mentor by himself and rebuilt the Caribbean Brotherhood after Mackandal went crazy and got burned at the stake. No, he comes back to the colonies and runs into Hatham, Kenway, and Shay and gets killed. Which, again, there was no reason for. Once you run his ship aground at a remote island, at which point the Templars could have just left him. There was absolutely no reason to run him to ground. They didn't need any information from him. They didn't need to kill him. He was just in their way. No, the only way that Shay knows how to get information is to, chase somebody onto a remote island and kill them. Somebody who he apparently had immense respect for. So instead of just crippling Adewale or abandoning him as a shipwrecked and cast off on this island with no way to get off, no, they kill him. So the history of Adewale ends right there. One of my favorite assassin characters. I loved Freedom's Cry. And here his character is just killed off in a stupid, stupid manner. It pissed me off. I hated playing Shay at that moment. I did not want him to succeed. So once you kill Adewale, you go on to kill the rest of the assassins. Hope, and then the French guy. And then finally you track Liam and Achilles to the Arctic, where they have found another precursor site where nobody's around, so it would not hurt for them to activate it and discover their mistake, but instead, of course, the Templars continue chasing them down. And they get to the interior, and they get to the location, and what happens? Do the assassins activate the artifact stupidly and cause the eruption? No. Achilles stops Liam from touching it, realizing that it's not the Apple of Eden, or an Apple of Eden, since there's more than one, and that it's probably what Shay described to be some form of stabilizing element of the world, and that they should leave it alone. Every doubt Shay had about the assassins, every criticism he had, every reason he had for betraying them was utterly, utterly shattered by that one action. If Shay had just trusted his companions a little bit, they would have justified that trust. Not activated the site, everything would have been fine. They could have kept going, and the Templars wouldn't have risen to power and killed a bunch of people. Instead, no. Shay and Hatham confront them, and Shay keeps talking smack and acting like this doesn't just prove that he was a complete moron. He believed that they would activate the site stupidly. They didn't. Every reason he had for betraying them, just undermined right there. Rather than realize his stupidity, they continue the confrontation. The thing is activated by accident. Hatham goes chasing after Achilles. Shay goes chasing after Liam. And then what happens? All of the trailers suggested some big final confrontation between the childhood friends, the former assassin turned Templar and the assassin. No. They get into a fight, the ice collapses, and they fall a distance. Shay miraculously unhurt, literally unhurt, despite falling like 50 feet onto his back. Liam mortally wounded. No fight, no real confrontation, and no, you should have trusted us. Just, I hope it was worth it. Bleh. It's just bad. All of the build-up for this confrontation between the former friends, and it's just completely underutilized. As a former English major myself, this is just terrible writing. This is a terrible story, terrible execution, and again, yet another reason why I didn't like Shay. He had no justification at this point. There was no reason for him to do any of this. In fact, there was no reason for him to chase after Liam at all, except potentially for the manuscript, except they've already seen that these sites are dangerous and aren't going to try getting any more of them. So going after the manuscript again is pointless. They could have just reached an agreement to burn the stupid thing and be done with it. And instead they get into a fight and the guy's killed. Not by you. The only assassin that Shay doesn't actively kill. Then he goes out and finds Haytham fighting Achilles, and Haytham wins. And now, instead of letting Haytham kill Achilles, Shay intercedes and wants Achilles to be left alive. Like he didn't do for Hope, who he liked, romantically liked, and not like Adewale, for whom he had immense respect for. He killed both of them, but now he wants Achilles left alive. And then what does Haytham do? Shoots Achilles in the leg and cripples him. Like they couldn't have done that to other assassins to stop them from being effective assassins. Cripple them instead of kill them, because he respected them and liked them and didn't want to kill them. No, it's okay to do that to Achilles, though. So Haytham does that in a very nasty way and then walks off. And rather than criticize Haytham for doing that, Shay goes, okay, and then gets charged with hunting down the box. And here is where the stupidest element of the plot comes in. Assassin's Creed Rogue is just a long, not so long preview for Assassin's Creed Unity. Because Shay chases after the box, and who has the box? Charles Dorian, father of Arno Victor Dorian, who you play in Unity. Oh my god. All of this was just a teaser for Unity. Now, if this game had come out like 2 or 3 months ahead of Unity, that would make sense. But released on the same day, who is going to be buying Rogue who isn't also going to be buying Unity? Maybe only people who have a PS3 but not a PS4. Which would be somewhat understandable. But then what do they need a teaser for if they haven't already bought the PS4? Just the sense here is it makes my head hurt. It's stupid. And then nothing comes of this. Shay, just goes off on a tangent about how the Templar Creed is now his creed and yada yada, and he's got the box and he's off to do whatever now. When I saw the trailers, I thought this plot could be interesting. That Shay could be a character who has some legitimate criticisms about the Assassin's Creed, and there are some criticisms you could make. How do you choose what freedoms are important? How do you choose which governments to support or oppose? Who decides? How do you avoid becoming egocentric or corrupt? No, none of that. He just betrays the assassins for what we learn is no justified reason, and throws in with the Templars again for no justified reason. Shay is a crappy character. And the game is just a trailer for Unity. So, there's the plot. And hopefully, just outlining it like that is enough of a justification for everyone to see what I'm talking about here. It is not a very good plot. And that's not even talking about the annoying modern day thing where you're wandering around the Abstergo Entertainment building, tweaking things, getting snarkily bitched at by a female Templar, and dealing with this crazy Templar named Otto or something, and who are making comments about the Assassins and about the Templars that are going, oh, doesn't the Assassin's Creed suck so much, and isn't the Templar Creed so much better, yada yada yada. And every time I'm sitting there thinking, no, your logic stinks. No, you're wrong. Please be quiet. I'm trying to get through this. Stop bickering at me and making stupid, snarky comments. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not a good storyline. It's not a fun storyline to play. And yet again, it just comes back to I don't want Shay to win. I don't want to be playing as this character. And I've never before, in any game I have ever played, hated the character I'm playing that much. I didn't even mind playing Haytham Kenway that much. At least he's a better, more interesting character than Shay is. If this game had been about Haytham Kenway, and you had been playing about Haytham Kenway, this game would have been vastly better. But no, you're playing as this annoying prick named Shay, who's just a prick. Not good. And, you know, there was a lot of room for some interesting things here. You're teased at the final events in Paris, where Shay is wearing an outfit that has no assassin or Templar iconography on it at all. And at first I was thinking, that's interesting. Because he goes from wearing traditional assassin robes to very clear Templar outfit with Templar symbols on it. And now here he is wearing clothing that shows no allegiance whatsoever. Which made me think maybe they're going to pull a Revan. Maybe this is going to be a character who experiences both sides and ultimately discards both and decides to do their own thing. A total independent. A character who is a literal rogue from authority and who creates his own creed to live by. Where he bends knee to no one else and no one else's authority. And sets his own rules and his own agenda. That could have been really interesting. That could have been really cool. And something very interesting to see. But no. No. He's just an idiot who, instead of trusting the people that had given him every reason to trust them, he betrays them, kills them, and then falls in with the Templars, permanently and for good. And then the very ending of the game is that you upload this story to the assassin servers in modern day to destabilize them and dishearten them and freak them out. When, you know, any person who's a fan of the franchise and the Assassin storyline, you know, I feel like anyone like that who's like me, who is looking at this idiot Shay and would do nothing but bow our heads in collective shame at his stupidity and pathetic worthlessness. So again, 4 out of 10. Below average. Do not buy this game unless you are a huge fan of the franchise. It's not worth it. Just buy Unity. Or better yet, buy Assassin's Creed 4. And play that. Play that a lot. Because that game is a lot better. Heck, get Freedom's Cry. That game is a lot better. And I much preferred playing as Adewale than I did playing as this idiot killing Adewale. One was cool, one is a moron. So, I've talked for a while, probably not made the best sense, but hopefully you get the point. Don't play this game. Get it? Okay? Alright. Have we gotten the message across? Okay? And Ubisoft, please, in future, you can do better than this. You've got better writers than this. Past games' plots have been much better than this. Past characters have been way better than this. There are ancillary characters in other Assassin's Creed games that are way more interesting and would be way better to play. Heck, the intro menu to Assassin's Creed Unity, showing other timelines, shows one option called Jazz Age Junkies, which is apparently a 1930s era mobster assassin. Please, please, please give me a game in the 1930s. Please, please, please give me a game set in the Roaring 30s. An assassin with a Tommy gun in a violin case? Are you kidding me? That would be like the most awesome thing of ever. Do that, please. And enough of this. Forget Shay. Screw him, he's a moron. Okay? You can give us better Templar characters than that. There are better Templar characters than that. Haytham, for one, okay? I would have rather just played as Haytham. Alright? So, message to Ubisoft ends. End of the review. Thank you for listening. This has been probably biased. I'll be releasing a video over Assassin's Creed Unity shortly, where I talk about that game, and unfortunately how much nothing works. And it's no surprise that in Rogue, Uplay doesn't work. I didn't get any actions progress in that game, and it did not give me any of the rewards I purchased. Thank you, Uplay, for not working. I just love technology when it works, don't you guys? Alright. Thanks for watching. See you next time.